Hey, this is Judah Mantel for SceneForge Studio, and in this video I'm going to go over version 0.7.30. It has a major change or a new feature to the dynamic track and path system that I'm really excited about. So let's jump right in. So I have this spotlight stand here, and previously if I wanted it to move along a path, I would have to either keyframe it, which you still can do of course, or manually add a dynamic track object and then link the two objects together. Now this worked, but it was a little clunky just because it was two separate objects and it was not ideal. So now every object that you can bring into your scene has an edit path button over here next to the timeline button, and that opens up this path editing window here. If you're familiar with the old system, a lot of these options will be familiar to you. And it works exactly the same way, except this time the paths are directly linked to the object itself. So when this window's open, I can shift click to add points, exactly like the old system. So I'm going to move this over here and create some points through this little house or a little hallway. And you can see I can shift click to add them. I can control click to remove and click and drag to move them around. Or I can right click on any object or any point and either delete it this way or insert a point before or after, which is really handy. And yeah, it works pretty much like that. But what's great about this new system is that the path exists in world space, meaning that if I were to set up a path like so, it's moving through this hallway here, if it was attached to the object, the problem would be if I were to move the object, the path would go with it and it would ruin the whole setup we have. So now even though the path is linked to the object, you'll see it exists independently from the object itself. And you can see when I move the object around, we have this red line indicating, hey, you moved it away from the start point. And you can see that if I press play, the first thing it'll do, it'll move to the start point and then do its rounds along the path. So wherever it is, and of course if you turn it off, it'll move back. So wherever it is, you can have that animation running properly, or you can position it at the start point. This means that independently from the object, you can position these anywhere you want, including the start point, which is great. Of course, if you wanted to move it up and down on the y-axis, you can hold shift while dragging, and that'll lock it on the y-axis, which is really handy as well. Now you'll see there's two representations of the path. There's the actual track that looks like a dolly track, and then there's this green line that runs throughout it. Now, the actual track itself is really for representing it in storyboards and floor plans. So you can see if I were to close this and open up the floor plan editor, we have a nice representation of the track going through the scene here. But when actually editing the path, it's these little wireframe representations that show the actual path that the object will move along. So when I have a linear path, meaning not curved, we have these sharp corners. And for some things that makes sense, but we can also turn on a curved path, which uses a Catmull-Rom curve. So it's a mathematical curve that takes in every point into account. And you can see as I move these around, we get these nice wavy lines that are following an equation that makes sure that as you move them around, they all have the proper curve. It's kind of like a Bezier curve, except without those extra handles, to put it really simply. There's a lot more research you can do if you want to have information about that. So you can see that even though the track representation does not follow the curves, simply because the extra vertices are not really necessary, you can see the actual path that the object will follow in the scene view. But in the floor plan editor, you have exactly what you need for tech viz and things like that. In the future, we'll probably add a more efficient way of doing the proper curves, but for now, this works really well. Now, the other options are as follows. You can enable closed path to, well, close off the path, so now it'll be a closed loop rather than jumping immediately to the start position. You can change the loop type, so if you want to go once, or yo-yo, which just goes back and forth like in reverse. Of course, you can change the path duration in seconds. You can also ease the path, so if I have something a little simpler, just to show this off better, you can ease the path so it smooths the motion in and out on either side. So now it really looks like a bouncing yo-yo. But what's cool is that we also have the option to play with timeline, meaning that if you check this off, now regardless of any existing timeline animation tracks for this object, when I click play, it'll do its thing along with the timeline. Or if you just want it looping in the background, you can hit play over here and close the menu and it will do its thing as is. Now in the future, there's a lot more coming to this system that I'm really excited about. Mainly the ability to actually use a timeline clip to control the duration and timing of the path, which is really handy. And also, when you put a rigged character on the path, the animation of the walking of the character will accurately move along with the track motion. So you can do some really great things with actor blocking, for example. So if I have two characters that I'll set up here, let me turn this off because it's a little distracting. I'm going to bring in a stand-in over here, and then another one over here. I can create paths to actually kind of create little, essentially previs for actors walking around a set. So I want them to stop here and start talking to each other. We can previs that on the timeline for, yeah, really great setting up of set designs. The other thing that's coming is the ability to actually have pausing at different waypoints. So in the next release, you'll be able to edit a path, right-click on a waypoint, and add a pause. So when it gets to that one, it'll stop for a set number of seconds and then continue. Just a couple of the other things coming soon. So if I hit play, everything will move accordingly. This one did not start yet because we have to make sure it knows that it's not on the starting waypoint like that. Perfect, now it's all working. So again, it's very early, but there's so much more to come that I'm really excited about. And so with that, if you have any questions, you can leave a comment down below or email me directly at judah@sceneforge.app, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.